Hi everyone, it's RJ with Tai Chi for you. So today we're going to do some stretching. Let's get right to it. So just stand comfortable and we'll start by opening and closing our hands, making a fist. Now what you want is we're making a very light fist. We're not squeezing hard, but let's make a real fist. So in other words, pull the fingers in and then bring the thumb on the outside. So the thumb is running across the first two fingers. All right, so we'll do that on both sides. And we'll just get some blood moving into the hands. So these stretches that I'm going to show you, you can do them before a Tai Chi class or separately, even if you don't practice Taijiquan. If you're going to go do some running or go to the gym, or even if you don't work out at all, you can do these stretches and it can become a part of your regular workout routine. So after we open and close the hands a few times, we can move the wrist. So here, relax the shoulders and just move the arms so the wrist moves. Go back and forth a few times. And then we can move to our elbows. So just relax the arms and bend at the elbows. So we're just lubricating the elbows. We're moving from one body part to the next. These stretches that I'm going to show you, you can either do the complete routine a few times a week, or if there's certain exercises that you prefer over the others, you can just do those. So from here, we're going to move our shoulders. So bring our hands to our shoulders and just move in a circular direction, going one way, moving the shoulders, keeping the hands around where the shoulders are. And then we can move in the other direction. I'm going to say a couple of things about Taijiquan and martial arts as well. Some of you may or may not know Taijiquan is also a martial art. Another exercise we can do for our shoulders, if this is a little bit too strenuous for some people because they may have shoulder injuries, then you can just go backwards and forwards, keeping the arms in the same plane, the same level. So this is an alternative if you have some shoulder issues. So a good reason to practice Taijiquan, or I should say the most important reason, is really for all the health benefits that it can give you. As the years go on, if you want to start to learn the martial side, that's really up to you. But I'm going to say a couple of things about all of this. So from here, we're going to do a little waist turning where we swing the arms. But what we want to do is, as we go to this side here, we want to lift up on that back heel. So we're just resting on the toe. So we go in this direction, resting on that back toe, and then we go in this direction, resting on the toe. So the reason we do this is we want the movement to come from the waist, and we don't want to torque the knee or twist the knee. But we can still get that rotation going on in the waist. So the thing about training in any type of martial art, even Taijiquan, when you're learning to really fight or to defend yourself, Here's the problem. You're gonna get hurt. If you're training for a real situation that day may come, I'm on the street and I'm going to apply some of this, you have to prepare for the real thing. The next exercise is we're going to isolate the waist. So we're going to make some circular movements. Try to keep the head still rather than moving the head all around. Try to keep the head still and just isolate the waist. In Taijiquan practice, we learn to isolate all the joints in the body, and then over time, we learn to link them all together in our practice, in our form practice. So the thing about, I don't want to discourage anybody to not learn martial arts or anything. It does have a purpose for the soul, I guess you could say. There's something very pleasing about the practice. But if you're practicing for a real situation, then you have to, or I should say, if you're preparing for a real situation, you have to practice like it's a real situation. You have to start out with learning the techniques in a slow manner so you understand the movements, but then you have to pick up the pace. You have to increase the speed, and you have to practice as though it's a real situation. Because if you're going to the gym or the dojo, practicing at a slow speed or no contact, when the day comes, if the day comes, you practice, you perform what you practice. So in the real situation, you're going to do exactly the same thing you did in the gym. No contact, moving slower than you should be. Unfortunately, it's not like in the movies. Martial arts is not like in the movies. The people that become martial art masters, they don't go to the dojo. I'm talking about their lifetime to learn. They didn't go to the dojo once a week for a class and then do nothing all week long and then go back to class the next week, and that was their only practice time. To become a master in any martial art, you have to practice all the time. Let's look at MMA fighters. If this was an idea that I was thinking, you know, let's say you've been training and now you have a coach. You're going to be this MMA fighter. If your coach said to you, okay, so you're going to come to the gym once a week with me, we'll train for about an hour, maybe 2 hours. There'll be no contact whatsoever. When we apply the arm locks and everything, we're not going to go to the extreme where you actually feel the arm lock. And then the rest of the week, you can kind of do what you want, and then I'll see you the next week. Oh, and by the way, I prepared a fight for you, a real fight coming up in a month. How long are you going to stay with that coach? These MMA fighters train all the time to get better and better. So the reality is, we have this fantasy that we want to become a good fighter, but you need to put in the time to do that. You may have to give up some things. I'm sorry, I'm rambling on. Let's keep moving here. The next exercise, we can start by taking one leg and taking a step back, so we're just on the toe. And now we move the leg in a circular movement. What we're doing is moving the hip joint. Isolating that hip joint. I'm sorry, this I've run into some people over the past that speak about learning combat, but they don't do anything about it. They have this fantasy that it'd be really cool, and I try to explain to them that yes, go ahead and do that, but you're going to get hurt. If you're training for a real situation, maybe you're not intending on hurting the partner that you're with. I mean, that's not the intention. The intention is to learn, but through that learning, sometimes by a miscalculation, you're going to get an injury. Let's do the same movement, but go in the other direction. Now, I would like to say that when I was a teenager, I basically dabbled in other martial arts, and I would come home limping sometimes, or I would have some bruises, or nothing major, fortunately for me. But I wasn't training for the real thing either. I was practicing, and I was still getting injured. And we weren't practicing full combat, I should say full contact. Let's change sides. So we'll balance on the other leg, take a step back on the toe, and go in one direction. There's kind of another thing people need to be aware about. YouTube videos. You know, I'm doing one right here. Talking about if you're in a situation and you have no martial art experience whatsoever, they're demonstrating something and they're telling you, if you're in a situation like this, then do this movement. They don't tell you that that movement isn't going to work in the real situation, because they're demonstrating techniques that require precision. They require a speed, they require precision to apply the movements. Maybe they can apply the movements, maybe they can't, but they're telling you, let's go the other direction, but they're telling you to apply these situations in this real situation, and sometimes they even tell you that by doing this was one particular video speaking about being in a nightclub situation for a woman, and what they're telling you is, you know, this way you prove a point to the man that's trying to grope you or whatever. You prove a point to them that you can't be messed with, but at the same time, they won't get hurt. Well, here's the real fact. Anytime you put your hands on another human being, there's potential injury, serious injury. They could fall out of clumsiness and try to stop their fall with their hand, for instance, and dislocate their wrist. Or even worse, if they're drunk, they could slip and fall, crack their head. And guess what? They're in the emergency room. You've got handcuffs on because you wanted to prove a point. Anytime you lay hands on somebody, it could go any direction. We don't know the history, the health history of any human being just by looking at them. They could have heart problems. We just don't know. So while training martial arts is enjoyable, and I do it, you need to understand the consequence. This next exercise, we'll just interlock our fingers, have a normal, comfortable stance, interlock the fingers and stretch over the top of the head. Nice stretch. From here, we're going to rotate the waist as far as it'll go in one direction, and then rotate the head in the direction. Keep going with the head till we're all the way around, as far as we can go. Then we can come back to the center, turn the other way. Come back to the center. Let's do that one more time. Turn the other direction, all the way around. Come back to center, and back the other way. From here, we're gonna bend sideways. So if you can keep the hands directly above the head, you'll get a better stretch. If you can't, you need to go a little bit more forward, that's fine. What we want is, we're gonna be stretching under the arm, so it doesn't matter how far you lean to one side, because there's really a stretch is coming from here. So we'll go to one side, and you'll feel a better stretch if the hands are right above your head as opposed to in front of you. So if you can't have them above the head, so much the better. You'll feel the stretch more. And then we can go to the other side. And back to the other side. So now we'll stretch forward at the waist. You don't have to worry about touching your toes, but have a slight bend in the knees, and then just relax forward. If you feel the need to come up early, that's fine. Go down as far as you feel comfortable. And then you can come back up. Now sometimes you may feel a little bit dizzy coming up from that position. What you can do is, as you come up, keep your eyes focused on the ground when you rise up, and that might help a little bit with the unstable feeling that some people have. So let's go through those movements again, interlocking the fingers over the top of the head, and then we'll twist to the other side, one side. And then we'll go to the other side. Another thing that was brought up to me concerning martial arts, and then we can come to the front. People have asked me, is martial art X superior to martial art Y, for instance? Well, what I would say is it depends on the martial artist. Depending on how much that person trains, you can have, let's say you can have the best martial art in the world, but if you're only going to class once a week and that's the only training that you do, well, how effective are you going to be, even if it is the best? So really, you can take any martial art and you'll be happy with it. If you're looking for the best martial art that's out there, I would say just pick one and you'll probably enjoy yourself learning it. And then it'll be up to you how effective you want to be in that martial art, or if you just want to practice the martial art just for the sake of practice. And there's nothing wrong with that. We live in a society now where maybe learning to fight isn't the most important thing. Back in the early days of China and Japan, you had to fight to survive real situations. It isn't so much like that today. People have guns and knives, and your technique has to be so good to take a knife away from another human being. Let's stretch forward at the waist. And then we can come back up. So the next stretch is we want to point the toes out at a slight angle. And you'll see if you have the flexibility to do that. Some people don't. And we're going to just squat straight down. So my elbows are on the insides of my knees, and you'll notice that my feet are flat on the ground. I'm not on my toes. You need to have the flexibility in the lower back and the hamstrings as well to get into this low squat position. It may take a few months, it may take a couple of years, it depends. You want the knee directly over the toes. You don't want to be too far forward. You want them directly above and in alignment with the toes. And you can have the elbows on the inside to keep the knees from moving. You can see that I'm kind of low here. My butt's almost touching the ground here. But one thing I want to point out about Taijiquan, you don't have to be super strong or super flexible to practice. You just need to be able to move, get out there and move. And be patient. Be patient with the practice. Alright, let's come on up. So let's take a wide stance. Again, keeping the toes slightly pointed out. And what we'll do is we'll lean the body to one side. Now I'm not really putting any weight on my thighs. I'm just resting here. And then I'm going to go to one side. So this leg is bent, but I'm going to turn my waist in this direction here, and I'll feel a stretch on the inner thigh here. And then we can stand up and bend the other leg, putting our bending towards this leg, stretching. And we can go back. We can go a little bit lower if you have the flexibility to do so. Maybe take a wider stance and go all the way down. And then with this side here, the leg that's bent, you can cup the toes and keep the elbow on the inside. Again, keeping that knee above the toes. And once again, you can see that my foot's flat over here. That's very important. Because you notice that I'm not leaning over to get low to the ground. The stretch is coming from my legs. And then we can switch to the other side. You can have the other hand resting on the ground if you want to have some balance. That foot as well is flat on the ground. It's not lifted. It's flat on the ground. Now if you can do these stretches, that's fine. If you can't, that's fine too. we can take it another step further, come on the heel, rather than being on the toe, on the flat part of the feet, we can come up on the heel and get very low. And here I'm balancing with this hand here on the ground to keep balance. And this elbow, once again, is on the inside, grabbing the toes to keep that knee in alignment. And then we can switch to the other side. There are several martial arts styles out there that are considered soft style. By soft, it doesn't mean that they're weak. It's just a different way that they're practiced and applied. In Taijiquan, we move very slowly in our practice. But in a real situation on the street, we have to move very fast. We have to move as fast as our opponent is. You may see some videos on YouTube demonstrating the teacher with the student, and the student seems to be cooperating, or at least it seems that way. Well, that's partially true. The student knows what the teacher is demonstrating, and so the student cooperates to a certain degree. If the student didn't cooperate, well, the student would probably end up in the emergency room. So you'll see a lot of some of these videos, you'll see people posting that there are certain things, oh, this is all fake and all of that. The reality is, if the student doesn't cooperate, and this goes for our own practice, we wouldn't have any martial arts schools, because everybody would be getting injured the very first day because we're not cooperating. I think it's kind of funny. There would be no martial arts schools, because you would go in your first day, you wouldn't cooperate, and you would end up with a dislocated joint, and martial arts wouldn't exist, because they wouldn't have, teachers would have no students. So some of these videos where the teacher is actually throwing their students, and the student is rolling on the ground or on the mat and getting right back up and attacking the teacher, well, all of this is practiced in such a way that neither one gets hurt. But in a real situation, when you throw your opponent to the ground, they're not cooperating. So something is going to break, and when they hit the ground, they're going to hit the ground. They're not going to roll and get back up and attack again. So let's sit on the ground for the next one. I'll give you this angle here. So here we're just going to stretch forward towards the toes. Now it's important that we don't round the back. We want to bend at the waist. So I'm bending at the waist to grab the heels of my feet. Now my goal is to bring my chest to my knees. So you don't want to fool yourself by doing this, bending rounding the back and bending the head, it gives you the illusion that you're doing a big stretch because, oh, my eyes can see that my knees are right there. Again, the goal isn't to see well, I should say the goal is to just get a stretch and do it properly. If you can't bring the chest to the knees, that's fine. You just want to pivot at the waist, go forward. You can suck in the stomach. That gives you a little bit more room to move and just go forward. It even helps if you look forward, because then you're not going to fool yourself into thinking that, wow, I've got a really good stretch here. My head's actually touching my legs. The other thing is, if you need to, you can bring the knees up a little bit if you feel that's a little bit more comfortable. But ideally, the knees are pretty much flat on the ground. So after you've been stretched forward, we can come back, bring our hands in back of us so the fingers point away from us. The fingers pointing back of us. And then we can expand the chest, look up, and stretch backwards. So our body stretched forwards, now we're stretching backwards. And then we can do this one again, stretching forward. And once again. So we're getting close to the end of the stretching video. If you're curious what a Taijiquan class may feel like, what you can do is you can follow this video, and then at the bottom of the video, I'm going to have in the description a couple of videos that you can follow after this. And it'll give you some idea what a class may feel like. So here, just bring the soles of the feet together and then grab at the ankles and pull them as close into the body as you can. And then wrap around the toes from underneath. And again, you can keep the elbows on the inside, pressing down on the inner thighs. Ideally, to find out what any martial art class is like, you actually have to be in the martial art class with a teacher that can tell you you're standing wrong. You have to move this foot a little bit more this way. That hand has to come up a little bit more. Ideally, that's the situation. But if you're curious, you can follow the description, at least for what a Taijiquan class may feel like. And I mentioned in a couple of videos that I do teach Taijiquan in Paxton, Massachusetts at Meta Wellness. So if you're ever curious and you want to check out a class, I can do a private class, or as soon as we get over this coronavirus thing, have a full class, a drop-in class. And I'll always tell you what I believe is the truth as far as Taijiquan and martial arts go. Unfortunately, I'm not going to get into the fantasy of what martial arts is all about. Like going to the movies or stuff you hear other people say, or even some YouTube videos. There are some YouTube videos that show choreographed fight scenes, and it's strictly there for entertainment, so you don't want to get sucked into that either. So unfortunately, I'm here to bust your bubble and tell you what the truth is all about. And if I don't have the answer, well, then I'll find the answer. Or I'll just tell you I don't know. I'll find the answer for you. So let's do one more stretch. So here in this case, put one leg straight out in front of you. Take the other leg and reach over. So here, this leg is bent, starts on the inside. It goes to the outside of the leg. Now, I'm gonna bend this leg here at the knee and tuck it in. Then I can pull my whole body forward, so I'm into this nice compact position. So from here you can just pull the knee into your chest and hold this stretch. I hope I don't discourage people from studying martial arts. There is something very interesting about it, about practice. But it's just like playing the guitar. If you want to learn to play the guitar, you have to be patient with it. And if you want to get really good at playing the guitar, well then you can't just go to your teacher once a week for an hour and that's the only time you practice and expect that, you know, and go around telling people that you're a musician. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So now we're going to change sides. So stretch the legs out. Whatever leg was forward, tuck that one in. Leave the other leg straight. The leg that's bent, stretch over to the other side. And now the straight leg, you can bend that at the knee and then move the whole body forward. So nice tight package. And then you can pull the knee into the chest. Learning any art form takes time, takes patience, and if you want to get good at it, well then you have to do it frequently. You have to do it on a regular basis. And I say any art form because it is a martial art. And I'm speaking about any martial art, really. So I hope I gave you some stretches that you can do, and I hope I gave you some things to think about regarding martial arts, and I'm getting off my soapbox now. But I do encourage everyone to if martial arts is something that interests you, I encourage everybody to try it. At least give it a try. And if one martial art doesn't suit you, well then try to find a different one. Or if that teacher doesn't suit you, then find a different one. So that's it for today. Again, these stretches, you can do them as your exercise program, if this is all that you do in life. Or if you're preparing to go to the gym, you can do some of these stretches. If you're preparing to run, go for a run, you can do these stretches. They don't have to be exclusive to Taijiquan practice. You can also break up these exercises throughout the day. You can do a few throughout the day. If you're at a desk or whatever, if that's your work, you can stand up during break time, do some stretches, then do some different stretches at a different time of the day. So they don't have to be one right after the other. The important thing is to just move the body. So that's it for now. I'm RJ with Tai Chi for You. Thanks for watching. Click on subscribe if you like these videos. Take care.